I'm Rita Strubar, and I'm the daughter of Mary Loretta Chaney, Mary Loretta Cameron Chaney. I know a lot of you, and I don't recognize a lot of you, mainly because we're wearing masks, and a few years have passed probably since I've seen you. When Mom died last week, the family had a real big discussion about whether we should just have a graveside service or not. After all, Mom outlived all of her really good friends and her contemporaries. When you're 101 years old, you bury your friends and you say goodbye to them. So we received some phone calls, and I thought maybe I need to go ahead and have a service, as Mom would have wanted me to do so. And so about an hour ago, we buried Mom across the street next to Dad, and we are having this celebration of life. I know some of you have had to go through funerals that have been really difficult. This is not one of them. Mother lived to be 101 years old, and it's truly a celebration of life. If you were here, you knew my mother, and my mother decided what she wanted to do in life, and she told me, and she told Joe, and she told you probably. And Mom lived her life exactly as she wanted to live it. There were very few bumps in the road that she did not decide. And so with that in mind, we celebrate the life that she lived. And we're going to begin with a prayer. This is Reverend Susan Payne of the First Christian Church of Bartlesville.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Will you join with me in prayer? Holy and gracious God, we're gathered here in your presence. We feel the Holy Spirit among us on this cold day. We sit here warmed by each other's presence and the memories of Loretta Chaney. God, we know you'll be with us as all of us think back over the life that Loretta led in our presence, as mother, as grandmother, great-grandmother, as friend, as fellow church member. So many hats that Loretta wore during her life, and she wore them well. God, be with everyone as they grieve in their own way, and help them to turn that grief into joy. Joy at knowing that Loretta is at rest with her God. Amen.
Let me tell you a little bit about the life of my mom, although I think some of you could probably tell me a few stories also, and I hope you do. My mother was born in 1920 in not even a town, a farm, outside of Atoka, Oklahoma. She was the last child born. She was called Babe most of her life. In fact, if you'll look in the 1938 graduation class of Stillwater High School, it says Babe. Joe called her Babe. Her brothers and sisters called her Babe, and she lived up to that name. She lived the life of a typical farm child of the 1920s. She could remember they had sunflowers, and her job was to bend the sunflowers so that the chickens could eat the seeds on the ground. She had the job of obtaining eggs until she put her hand in, of course, and a snake was there. And if you happen to live in southeastern Oklahoma, you know there's lots of snakes. She then had the job of bringing in some wood for the fireplace to keep them warm until there was a snake there. And so Mother never liked snakes. After she lived this typical life, in fact, let me stop right there and tell you a story. You'll like this one. Mom has a really good friend by the name of Alice. She was in several of these pictures, and just as life would have it, Alice lived in Atoka, Oklahoma, and then she moved to California. And it was about the time that, and I'll come to that in just a second, about the time that we lived in California. So Mom and Alice had this long relationship. She and Alice got on a horse one day. After all, that's what they did. They got on the horse one day, and they were riding around, and she must have been 10 years old, and they got hungry. And of course, kids these days would go to a fast food or something. There's not any fast foods in the country of Atoka. So there was a bachelor who lived down the road from them, John. And they thought, well, we'll just go out to John's house. I'm messing you up, aren't you? She's trying to record and I'm getting too close. We're going to go out to John's house and see if John doesn't have some snacks for us. So they stopped at John's house and John wasn't there. But he had a whole yard full of chickens. And so you know exactly what they did. They chose the fattest one. They wrung its neck. They plucked it. They cooked themselves chicken, and you don't need to have Kentucky Fried when you have fresh chicken. And so they ate what they wanted to eat. They left a note for John saying, the rest of it's yours. And I always said, Mom, what did John do? You know, in this day and age, you know, gone after him, you've been mad at you. Oh no, John told us later, thanks for the fried chicken. And that's a typical life that they led. It lasted several years until there was a decision made by the family. And I remember this was the latter part of the 1920s and early 1930s that the family would move to California. So they sold the farm and everything that they had. And Mom can remember riding on the back of a flatbed truck. And they'd put a canopy over the top of it, and they rode Route 66 to California. And they lived in California for a while, and it really wasn't a bad time for them. They got up there before the rest of the Okies did, and so they were able to get employment. But her dad decided this was not a place to raise children, and he had 3 teenage boys and these 2 girls. So they came back to Oklahoma and bought another farm. It wasn't as nice as the first one, but it was still a farm where they could make a living. But then her mother, who suffered from asthma, decided she better go back to the desert and live. And so it was on one of these trips back to California, Arizona, that the mother and my mom can remember it being, she called it a cabin. I have a feeling it was a 2-room, I have a feeling we'd call it a shack probably, but anyway, it was a cabin that they lived in, and her mother died. And she's 14 years old. And her father has 3 teenage boys he's raising. And there was an older sister who by this time had been married. And so a decision was made for Mom to go, against her will, to Stillwater to live. And that's the reason she graduated from Stillwater High School. It was when she was in Stillwater that she meets a young engineering student by the name of Loretta Chaney. And a lot of you here remember my daddy. And Daddy was really proud of A&M, and he loved Stillwater. And they dated for several years and got married in 1942. Again, you know what was happening in 1942. Dad ends up joining the Navy. And in fact, specifically, he was assigned to the Seabees. And he went first of all to Virginia, and then they went out to California to live. He was stationed at Port Wainema, which is in Oxnard, California, and that's where I was born. And Dad then got orders that he was to go ship out to the war in the Pacific. And so Mom and I ride the train back to Stillwater, and we were going to live again with this older sister. Dad never knew what happened, but something obviously did, because when it came time to board that ship that was departing that particular day, his name was not on the roster. And so he told goodbye to many of his friends that he never saw again, let Mom know that his name wasn't on the roster. And so we went back out to California on the train. And we were able to stay with Dad then for another year or so. And then finally he did get his orders, and he went to Okinawa, and he served in the war in Okinawa. Again, Mom and I came back to Oklahoma, lived in Stillwater. That's where my brother was born. Once Dad then is discharged from the Navy, he gets a job with Phillips, and there weren't homes here, because after all of the guys were getting out of the armed services, and there weren't the homes here available. And so we lived in Caney, Kansas for a while until they found a home in Bartlesville. We then moved to Bartlesville. My brother and I obviously grew up here, graduated from high school here. In fact, I have 3 of my high school girlfriends here, and none of us are, again, they're girls to me, and you'll look at them and say, oh, you all are old ladies. But anyway, 3 of my really good girlfriends are here that we graduated from high school with. And so we grew up here, and during that period of time, Mom was a community volunteer. She worked Girl Scouts, and there's several of you here from the Girl Scouts. It was at that time that they purchased the camp, and in fact, she served as president for 7 years. They were very active in the Jane Phillips Square Dance Club, and those of you who square danced with them, I'm sure had a really good time on their square dance for years until she decided that she couldn't because of the, you know how we sort of jerk each other in square dancing, do-si-do or whatever, and so she couldn't do that anymore. Mom also served in the church. She did Cub Scouts with Ron for a while. She was very active in the community. Dad then accepts a transfer to Norway, and he was one of the engineers on the Ecofish, and really enjoyed his time. First they were in London, England, and then they were in Stavanger, Norway. Dad thought it was wonderful. Mom thought it was terrible because obviously she sat at home. And plus, if you think about Norway, it's wonderful in the summertime. And did any of you serve with? Were any of you? None of you were with Dad in Norway, were you? Anyway, in Norway, it gets this time of the year. You have 3-4 hours of daylight, where they lived in Stavanger, because of the way the sun always is. And so they would have sunlight from 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was dark the rest of the day, and Mom had nothing to do. And so anyway, they stayed over there for a few years, came back here. Dad doesn't stay with Phillips too much longer after that and retires. In their retirement years, they visited several cities in the South. They would either go to California, where her brother still lived, or Arizona, or Florida. And Mom kept seeing all of these community centers. And so she had a businessman here in Bartlesville who approached her and said, I've heard you're interested in getting an activity center started. Why don't you do it? Well, that's all it took for Mom. So anyway, she gets the committee together. She has a garage sale, makes $300 or $400, and that was the beginning of the 55+ activity center that I'm hoping a lot of you have taken advantage of. She thought it was just absolutely wonderful. And in fact, am I thinking about it right now? I tried to talk Mom into moving to Oklahoma City, where 90% of her family lives. She wasn't about to. She loved being with all of you. She loved being at the center. She loved the church. She loved the Girl Scouts. This was her home. And again, this was her church home. And this was the city where she decided she wanted to live and die. And that's, again, a choice that she made. Once that center, of course, begins, then that became a very active part of her life. Daddy dies when he was 90 in 2011. And as all of us know, Joe Brooks became Mama's dancing partner. And Joe's Mom's dancing partner and good companion for the last 10 years, and has become certainly a part of our family. There's a couple of stories that I'll end up with, and that will be the end of Mom's life, but I think some of you probably were a part of some of these. Anyway, about 4 years ago, Mom gets a skin disorder, and she goes to the hospital here in Bartlesville, and they treat her, but whatever they do is not what it didn't work. So anyway, she goes back to the hospital, and they don't want to treat her, so they send her to Tulsa. And whatever they did at the burn center there was perfect, and after about 4 or 5 days, her whatever it was is clear, and she's wanting to come home. Mom wasn't about to stay in the hospital. And so she tried to talk me, of course, into getting her out of the hospital. And I thought, I'm not going to check her out or walk her out without doctor's orders. So anyway, we finally got the hospital to agree. And the hospital, they were looking at a 98-year-old woman who lived by herself, and they weren't about to let her go without some kind of, arrangements being made. So we finally talked her into going to a transitional center here in Bartlesville. For whatever reason, Mom kept saying, sure, I'll do that. Well, that's not Mom, and I should have understood what was happening. So anyway, I get transportation, and they go to Tulsa and bring her here, and I call her that night. You all can start staring at Joe about this time. So I call her that night, and I say, Mom, at the care center, everything okay? Oh, it's fine, I'm going. Okay, and so the next morning, I go to bed that night thinking, another problem solved. I get a call at 7:30 the next morning. And the lady said, we lost your mom last night. Well, I'm not an early riser. And when people say we lost your mom, I thought I'd done the wrong thing. I thought I'd brought her down here and she died on, that night. And so I say to this lady, I said, when did it happen? And she said, well, the nurses went in at 2:30 and she was gone. I'm going, oh my gosh, what happened? Again, I'm thinking she just died right there. And so she's saying, oh, we tried to not, what was her other way? They tried to talk her out of not going. And this was the most nonsensical conversation you've ever heard in your entire life, because I'm thinking one thing, she's telling me the other. Finally, I say to her, where is her body? And she says to me, a friend came to pick her up. At 2:30 that morning, she calls Joe. Joe picks her up out of the care center, takes her home. I say to the lady, give me just about 5 minutes and I'll call you right back. I call Mom, answers the phone. Mom, where are you? I'm in bed. Where are you, Mom? I'm in Bartlesville. Where are you in Bartlesville? I'm at home. So anyway, that happened, didn't it?
And I might add that once she got in the car, they were all lined up saying goodbye to her, and I saw one of them go.
I'm sure that's right. Another story, of course, as you know. How many of you are here? Is everyone here from Tallgrass? No, I thought, oh, you are. So I'm sure you know this. In fact, you probably were part of the problem, weren't you? Anyway, at Tallgrass, of course, Mom decided in '99 to sell her condo and move to Tallgrass. And Tallgrass was going to be the perfect place. I thought, wow, she'll stay active, and again, another problem solved, and the whole thing. And it would have been, except, of course, for COVID. And once COVID occurred, then they locked them down and told Mom she couldn't leave her room and she couldn't have people there. Well, that was a long thing to say to Mom. So, of course, she sneaks her friends in to play bridge. Were you one of those? Oh, okay. And gets in trouble. I have never in my life been called by an administration so many times. After a while, it's like, okay, what'd she do today? Of course, what happened at the end was that she has a key to the back door, and at 4 o'clock every evening, Joe comes up the steps and into her condo. Yes, Joe. And one day somebody sees him and reports him. Of course, I get my normal phone call. Mom gets called to the office again. And so Mom decided she was not going to live in assisted living. Just was not for her. So we, of course, during this time, it was her 100th birthday. We had this big party planned. COVID, we had to cancel it, although some of you I know participated in that drive-through, which ended up really being rather successful, although it wasn't the dance Mom wanted, but it was rather successful. 2 weeks later, at 100 years of age, she buys the house. Now, there wasn't even a home for sale in Shadow Lake at that time, but she knew she had to leave that transitional care center. So she remembers that there was I guess there wasn't a place for sale. She didn't want that one, she wanted this one. There were people that lived in California that weren't using their condo. So she literally calls them, talks them into selling their home to her, and she moves there at 100. Got to live there for a year and a half, and got to enjoy bridge with her friends. Joe could come over without everybody getting in trouble and that kind of thing. That was the life my mother lived. She lived her life as she wanted to live it. As we meet people in life, I think all of us take something from everyone. And so I'm hoping you that are here today have either taken the idea of community volunteer, have enjoyed a game of bridge with Mom, have enjoyed dancing, have enjoyed Girl Scouts, have enjoyed whatever it is that Mom allowed you to participate, and you allowed Mom to participate in your life. The one thing that I took from Mom, again, I move a little bit too fast through life, not as fast as Mom did, but a little too fast. And this is the one thing I think of now. I think every day I probably need to take a deep breath and listen to the music. And even though I'm not a dancer, I probably need to two-step my way through life. And if we can all remember to take that deep breath and hear that music and take a couple of two steps through life, I think that we will be able to live that life as Mom led it, and that was her way. That was the story of my mom.
I'm crying from laughing so much. She had a wonderful life. I was not able to meet Loretta until she was 99 years old. And I remember it very distinctly. The first time I met her was I was filling the pulpit. They hadn't yet called me as the minister at First Christian. And Loretta came up at the end of the service, 99 years old. And she says, in a very confident and firm way, the same way that I've heard her introduce herself to other people, "I'm Loretta Chaney." And she shook my hand. Firm voice, firm handshake. "I'm Loretta Chaney." Now, in all my life, I've only met two women who were named Loretta. And both of these women were confident and caring, and they were bundles of energy, just bundles of energy. They got things done. So I told Loretta, and she kind of indulged me. I said, "You know, you're only the second one I've met who's named Loretta." And she said, "Yes. Well, now you've met two." There is something about that name. I know that there is. If I ever meet a third Loretta, I will know what to expect. I have been forewarned. Loretta had a fascinating life. As we visited in 2020 in her senior living apartment at Tallgrass, she showed me all of the things that meant something to her in her life. We were talking about her 100th birthday that was coming up. And later in her condo, we also looked at some things, but on the walls of her home, she has pictures of all of the different places that she and Maurice lived, all of the things that were important. There were also the keepsakes from Norway and from all of their travels. Each one had a wonderful story with it. There was one extraordinary, really special item that was hanging on the wall. It was a wall hanging. It was on very simple, kind of muslin-looking cloth. It was very colorful. And Loretta had done all of the embroidery on it. There was a tree with branches, big trunk and branches, and tucked into those branches and on the trunk and everywhere in between were the names and dates of people who were important in her life. There were pictures of the places that she had been, all of these things that she carefully embroidered into that. For Rita, there was a colorful maypole, a birthday cake in Phillips University. There was a bat and ball, a basketball, and a hoop, and a little red wagon, Cub Scouts for Ron. On the trunk of the tree, there's a red heart with that date, April 4th, 1942, when she married Maurice. One thing that I thought was really interesting, I couldn't figure it out for a bit. At the bottom, there was a roller skate, a white roller skate. Remember that story that Rita told you about her moving to Stillwater when she was just 14 after her mom had passed away? Well, one of the bright spots in her time there was that she learned how to roller skate. She learned how to roller skate and she loved it. It meant so much to her that she included that at the bottom. There was Blondie, her beloved horse, and Blondie's barn, the square dancing, all of the addresses of each home, and the places that she visited. Norway had a prominent place. That wall hanging was certainly a labor of love for her. And it gave me a real peek into what she felt was important in her life. Loretta certainly didn't have an easy childhood, but through those hard times, I think she learned to be persistent and to be strong. She put that drive and determination into work that benefited other people, work that benefited others, the Girl Scouts, 55 plus, seniors, her family, PTA, her friends. In the Hebrew Bible, we find these words of hope and promise from the prophet Isaiah. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. God does not grow faint or weary. The Lord's understanding is unsearchable. God gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will fall and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Loretta had a full and active life, leaving many of those youths that Isaiah was talking about in the dust, tired and exhausted. But now, it's time for us to take up that mantle. It's Loretta's time to rest. It's time for us to be renewed by God so that we can do the things that she did in her best moments. To meet life head on, to embrace the challenges that we see and not to run away from them, and to dance through it all. Amen.
Mom had 3 grandchildren and, seven girls and 2 boys, 9 great-grandchildren. The 3 children are here today. Kristen, the oldest, is an attorney and a judge in Canadian County. Rustin is an attorney, and he and his partner have a boutique law firm in Oklahoma City. Michael is the youngest, and he works for the Department of Homeland Security in Oklahoma City. They will each have a little memory that they would like to share with you. They're just going to stand where they are. Again, this is rather informal. They're going to stand where they are and just tell you this little memory that they had with Mom.
So I'm the only grandchild. I'm the only granddaughter, and we called her Meemaw because she was Meemaw to us. And so my memories of Meemaw when I was a little girl is my brother Russ. You didn't know I was going to say this, but I'm dragging you in on this one. So we would just, it's nothing bad. We would go spend the summer. We spent a week in the summer with Meemaw and Papa. And during that time, you know Meemaw loved to play games. So we played a ton of games. We played the cards, we played the jacks, we played all the board games. And then I also remember that she would take us to go visit her friends in the nursing homes. And then we had picnics in the gazebos and the gazebo at their house. And so I remember it always ends with dessert. And dessert for Meemaw meant Girl Scout cookies. A lot of Girl Scout cookies. And then she liked to sew, and I remember some of the outfits that she made me, and one in particular is she made a top for me, and she made a matching top for her, and that was the picture that I took. My picture in that outfit was my first passport picture that I took for whenever we went to go visit them in Norway, and then she also took her passport picture in it as well. And then, growing older, I remember all the parties. She had more parties than I ever had. So all the parties and the dances and the Christmases. And I remember she was like a little kid at Christmas time. And she'd open up her stocking. She was just so excited with everything that was in the stocking. And then at Christmas, in fact, oh, Miss, this Christmas, she'd ask for me to get her a gift. And the gift she always wanted, she wanted me to get her something pretty. Something that she could wear to her dances and to her parties. And I always had specific instructions that she liked the best, anyway, and she didn't, definitely nothing that came over the top of her head. She didn't want to mess up her hair, and then she wanted it in pink. So, anyway, so hence I'm wearing pink today in memory. I've never worn pink to a memorial service ever, but I thought it was appropriate for today. So, anyway, it's kind of like what Mom said. The things that that I remember from Meemaw is, I'm gonna get her right. But anyway, have fun, enjoy life, definitely live it to its fullest, because that's what she did. I mean, goodness, she was on TV a week before she died, so anyway. Live it to its fullest and to be fancy. Thank you.
I like the microphone. So a couple years ago, pre-COVID, my youngest daughter had a volleyball game, high school volleyball game in Skytook. And Meemaw always wanted to come to a volleyball game, so we drove up early and picked up Meemaw and took her to the volleyball game. So it was a tournament, so there was 6 or 8 different high school teams there. It was very crowded. Meemaw was an instant celebrity. These kids have never met a 98-year-old before, and Meemaw loved every bit of it. It's the first game. Palmer's serving the very first serve of the whole tournament. Palmer takes a big whack, hits it right in the net. Worst possible start for the team. The other team's up 1-0, just like that. It's like everybody's kind of moans and shaking their head like, oh, here we go. Bad start. And Meemaw yells, way to hit the ball, Palmer. Totally oblivious that she hit the net, and she's like, man, she hit that ball hard. And it's like, Meemaw, she hit the net, and Meemaw didn't care. For the next set, Palmer could do no wrong, the whole team could do no wrong. She complimented every single girl. She'd never seen such great players. She was in awe of the volleyball game. At one point she said, you know what, I wish I could hit that ball. She's like, that looks like fun. She's like, does it hurt your hand? And it's like, it hurts my hand, but I don't know, well, you have to try sometime. Well, as luck would have it, in the second set, we were up in the upper deck, and they hit the ball way up on the second deck. And, I go get the ball, and usually you throw it back down because they're waiting on you to get the game going. And I'm like, maybe I'll give this ball to Meemaw and let her hit it down. So I took it over to Meemaw, and I said, Meemaw, hit this ball back down there. And I mean, she lit up like a Christmas tree. She was like, this is going to be so good. So she gets the ball. I was trying to remember how she did this, because usually you hold it with one hand, hit with this hand. She kind of had 2 hands on it, and somehow she kind of tried to hit the ball with 2 hands. And she took a big whack at it, and it fell straight to her feet. She didn't even touch the ball. And you know what Meemaw said, as loud as can be, she said, oh, Swanee. So the ball goes down, I go get it, and I'm about to throw it down there, and she said, Russ, give me that ball back. And she, she knew what she was going to hit that ball. She wasn't going to be deterred. So I gave her the ball again, and at this time it's been, at least a minute, and they're waiting on down there to play the game, and we've got this 98-year-old up there playing with the volleyball. Everybody's like, kind of looking quiet as can be now, because everybody's like, what the heck's going on? So Meemaw takes it for the second time. She does her little two-handed, tries to hit it, and this time she made enough contact where it actually kind of dribbled down. It hit a couple stairs, it took a lucky hop, and made it kind of down there on the court. And the crowd went wild. I mean, they were cheering. They thought that was unbelievably fun to see this 98-year-old hit the ball, and she was even more of a superstar. Well, Meemaw obviously is a people's people. By the time we left that tournament, she knew everybody's name on every team, every player. She had met every single one of them. They were bringing her hot chocolate and food from the concession stand, and she was a celebrity for a day. And that was quite the memory, a good memory, and it was a good time for us to take her to a volleyball game. So that kind of reminded me of what I will remember about Meemaw being a people's people, the life of the party, and not being deterred when she missed the ball the first time, take a second whack.
I'm Michael. I'm the youngest of the Richard Rita clan. One thing I remember about my Meemaw, I used to go down to Grand Lake in the summer because Mom used to say, I need a break. So, for some reason, I always spend there, almost the whole summer there, but, so I'd go down there, me and Mom would pick out, blackberries. And I'd always say, why are we picking blackberries? She goes, well, I'm gonna make because some people know my mom's birthday's in August, so right after summer, her birthday. So she goes, I'm collecting these for a cobbler. So she'd make a cobbler for the family. She'd either bring it down and we'd go up to, or come up here to Barnesville. Everyone would get their bite in the family, and then Mom would hide it, the other half of the cobbler, so no one never knew where it was at. Okay, that's one memory. Another memory is, they had a place at Grand Lake, and when I was real young, probably about 6 or 7, I loved swimming. And so we go down, she goes, I'll go down there with you, we go swimming, and I go swimming, and she goes, well, I'm gonna go wait on the dock for you. And I said, okay, so I keep swimming and swimming. She goes, I think it's lunchtime now, and then she forced me to go upstairs. So, I think a lot of that is just, you know, like Mom said, it's a celebration of life with her. You know, she loved doing things for others. I'm sure she treated me a little differently than she did her daughter and her son, but, she always seemed to have time to do what I wanted to do. Thank you.
And 4 of the great-grandchildren are here. We'll start off with Brooke. Brooke loves animals, and so she's doing a dog grooming kind of, and she's going to have a dog grooming. Wait, don't talk yet. Next will be Camden. Camden is a student at the University of Central Oklahoma and loves sports, loves playing, loves watching. Next will be Corell. Corell is a senior in high school, and you OSU people, she's matriculated to OSU. So now I have to go out and buy orange, and my daddy would be so proud of her. Corell is a band major, drum major, and 3 weeks ago, her band won first place in the state of Oklahoma. So that was exciting. Auburn is an 8th grader. She doesn't want to talk, but she shall. Auburn is a great soccer player and an excellent student. So, Brooke.
Okay, so I guess my favorite memory of Mima, I was the only great grandkid to spend the night with Mima. And I think my favorite memory while I spent the night was she just showed me her endless collection of jewelry and all her holiday specialized earrings and all that. So I think having that night with her was extra special to me and probably one of my favorite memories with my Mima.
What's up, I'm Camden. I would say my favorite memory of Mima is, you guys know that Mima loves to play her card games. And so, the first time I ever played card game with Mima, I think it was after Thanksgiving one year, and I was looking at my dad, and because she said, let's get the cards out and play. Well, you know, with Mima, it's never one game. It normally takes about 3 hours to get through a couple games. So, I was looking at my dad, and he's kind of like, oh, here we go, 3 hours is going to pass. And so, we played a couple games, and then Mima wasn't winning, so, you know, Mima likes to improvise when she doesn't win. And so, she improvised, and somehow she won the next hand. I don't know why. But, yeah, that's probably my favorite memory of Mima.
Hello, my name is Corral. I'd say my favorite memory of Mima would just be all the times that she'd be able to bring the family together, whether that was Thanksgiving or Christmas in July. She just always wanted people to be around, so that would be mine.
Fast.
My name is Auburn, and my favorite memory of Mima is the Christmas in July that she hosted, and when our family got together and we had fun at the clubhouse.
Mom has five other great-grandchildren. Parker is in Washington, D.C., obtaining his master's degree at Georgetown University in linguistics. Marin is a sophomore at the University of Oklahoma, pursuing her degree in psychology. Palmer is a freshman at Emory College in Atlanta. Peyton is a recent graduate of Baylor, and she has just recently received a job from IBM, and so she's in Sarasota, Florida. And Bella has a new job in Oklahoma City and wasn't able to be here. This is because of the COVID and all. The one decision we had to make, well, we had to make a lot, but one of the ones that it's going to be difficult. But anyway, we're not going to have a family receiving line at the end. It's just too scary for me to think about that I might infect you and you infect me. And so we're not going to have a receiving line. And so I just think it's appropriate that I go ahead and introduce Ron. Are you able to come back in here? This is my brother Ron that most of you know, lives in Springfield, Missouri. Ron has a terrible, he hurt his back really bad, like we didn't even think he's going to be here. So that's the reason he keeps getting up and walking out, not because he doesn't like you, but because his back's killing him. With him is Karen Scott, a really good friend of Ron's and a part of our family for years and years. Karen works at Mercy Hospital, and she is a social worker there. Dave is Christy's husband and works and teaches at Epic in Oklahoma City. Jen is Rustin's wife, and she has an online marketing business. Trisha is Mick's wife, and she also works at Mercy Hospital in the cancer department. Everyone knows Joe, and Joe is Mom's dancing partner and companion for the last 10 years. Tiffany and Laurie, are you here?
Yes, we're here.
Oh, can you stand? All of us, as we get older, I guess, have to face some kind of idea of what we're going to do as we get older. And there was a doctor here in Bartlesville, and I have no idea who he was, but I guess at some point in time when Mom was 98 or 99, he decides that if you're that age, you've got to go on hospice. And so he puts Mom on hospice, and at the time she needed it. She went through periods of time when she did need it and didn't need it. But these two women, Laurie and Tiffany, have lived with Mom for 3.5 years. I mean, they literally came to her house several times a week, took care of her, helped her in every way, shape, and form, did all the things that there was no way I could do with a distance. So if in fact you live in Bartlesville, I'm going to put a plug in for you. If in fact you live in Bartlesville and you would ever need hospice, or you ever know somebody who would, Compassionate Hands is just wonderful. It's a hospice group, and we thank you 100 times over. I think that is, did I miss anybody? I think that's what I need to do. Again, we thank you very much for being here. We're going to end with a prayer. Oh. I just forgot to introduce my husband, but that's what's new? Well, Richard and I have only said that we're interviewing our wedding, so we've only been married for 100 years. Anyway, this is my husband, Richard, who is an attorney and a residential developer in Oklahoma City. With that, we're going to end, I'm sorry. With that, we're going to end with a prayer, and then if you'll just stay seated, I have one more announcement, and that's it.
I can't wait for the announcement. I'm just going to leave you with a benediction, a blessing today. May God grant you peace. May God inspire you to go out and do greater things than you ever thought possible in this world. May God allow you to live a life that is joyous and full. Go in peace and go with God. Amen.
One last announcement. again, because we're not going to have a receiving line, if you would take the time, if you have the time, if you have pictures, whatever, I would love to hear your stories of Mima. You can just text me, call me, mail them to her address because her mail's being forwarded to me. But I've said it before. I mean, you are the reason she stayed in Bartlesville. She loved being with you. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a very significant part of her life. Well, you know Mima, so I'm supposed to give a signal to the guy in the back. Not yet, not yet, not yet. But we're going to end that. Wait 1 second. Wait, not yet. We're going to do something a little bit different. And you're going to be leaving anyway, I need you to stand, if you will. How many of you are here from 55 plus? Okay, good, because I'm going to need you, okay? We're going to stand, and they're going to play some music, and you will recognize it. We are all going to do the chicken dance. We did this at every one of Mom and Dad's parties, and you know Mom and Dad had a lot of parties. If you can't remember it, 4 clucks, 4 wings, 4 feathers, and a clap. Just going to do it a couple times. We're ready. Okay, now you 55 plus are really going to have to do this, okay?